Okay, here we are. So, Chapter 3, Part 2. Chapter 3 is titled Undone. At the edge of the Sadalia rainforest, in the far north of Sadar, and 1,000 miles from Irieth, lies a vast cave with cold tunnels. A dungeon under that mountain the Alassians call Seligor, and the human people of Sadar call Mount Valdu. For it is a mountain with jagged naked peaks that pierce the dry sky. When the Alassian War began, the Sadari were the first to be caught in the conflict. The Alassians emerged from the Sadalian jungle like a tidal wave. They came to kill and burn all that was human. The population, the farmlands, the cities. For hundreds of miles they went unhindered until the human army met them on the plains of Kalen. And it seemed there that the pale jungle people would meet their end. They retreated back under cover of the trees, but from the jungle then came swarms of monstrous demons, beasts unknown to humankind, frenzied horrors of brutality. With them came darkness and desolation, a disease of the mind. The humans called it a weapon of mass destruction, but the Alassians know it as the unlife. It is an evil that dwells in a realm beyond doors, that near Irieth had been guarded for millennia. Doors that had now been torn asunder by the Alassians' new leader, Lynn, he who wields the light. Yet there were those among the Alassians who would not forsake their sworn duty to safeguard life against the powers of darkness. They would not serve this new keeper on a path of violence. Instead, they sought peace with the humans, and by their own people they were marked as traitors. Much occurred between these Alassians and the humans before trust came to be and an alliance was formed. It was the alliance of Idalon that at last brought light deep underground in the belly of Mount Valdu. In a small dark cell, a young Alassian was found lying on a stone pavement coated in years of blood and filth. He was very thin, scarred, and disfigured, his face a mask of pain and dirt, his eyes half opened and staring into nothing. His hair was a snarl of muck. It was 2 inches long, for he was now 17. The Fallen who found him put his weapon away. He kneeled by the ruined body, and holding a finger over the thin mouth, felt a warm, shallow breath. He sighed. He bent closer and whispered in the youth's ear, "Hear me, little one. I have come to save you." There was no answer, no twitching of a finger, no fluttering of an eyelid. No sound came from the dry, broken lips. "Leave him, Tawori," said a husky voice. "The youth is spent. He will not survive the night." Tawori's gaze snapped to the newcomer, a bulky figure in the torchlight, bent to fit through the narrow doorway, his mane of alabaster dreadlocks filling the opening. "Since when have you no mercy, Varian?" Tawori said coldly. "It would be a mercy to end his suffering here and quickly." "Why, if he can live?" Tawori began to very carefully lift the young Alassian from the dirty floor. "Help me with him. Help me to save his life, Varian. We have ended many today, but this one will live. Help me with him." "You alone have ended more lives today than all of us together," said the other. But he came to help the Fallen place the dying youth onto his back. "What has gotten into you, my friend?" "It is the smell of this place," Tawori said. "The stench of darkness. Do you not feel it?" "Aye, that I do," said Varian. "I do feel it." From the belly of Mount Valdu, the Alassian Tawari of the Alliance emerged covered in the blood of many enemies and with a waning life on his back. The youth was taken to a house of healing in human lands across the sea, at the place of the Alliance. For many days and nights, the young Alassian lay on a hospital bed, his head resting on a soft pillow, his face clean, his short hair pristine white. Little by little, his features eased. His injuries healed, and his thin lips came to rest together in a soft line. But beneath his low brows, white as snow, his misty eyes remained half open and fixed somewhere in the distance, unseeing and oblivious of the world. Dr. Alfred Bash, a man with olive skin and a square, hard jaw, had said that the youth was in a state of unawareness, and though he slept and woke, he was never conscious. Nothing more could be done for him but wait for the brain to heal itself if it could. Yet Alassians know more about the working of the mind than humans do. So at last it was the Selin Aruhin who brought the youth back from oblivion. Sitting for long on the blue sheets of the hospital bed, her hands gently holding the youth's face, her fingers in his hair, her eyes closed in concentration. The young Alassian stared. His lips twitched. He moaned, and then his eyes closed. Then he lay still, breathing softly as one dreaming peaceful dreams. Aruhin drew a heavy breath and wiped the sweat from her face. She tucked a stray lock of long ivory hair behind her ear and stood up. "He rests," she said, smiling. She spoke the human tongue, for there were humans in the room. "I believe when he next wakes, he will be with us." "He's been with us for over a month," Dr. Bash observed, shaking his head. He began to check his patient's pulse and breathing. "Of course. You are right, Doctor. My apologies." Aruhin lifted her brows at the fallen beside her. He was taller than she and wore his ash-white hair in 2 long braids that from his scalp hung thick and heavy past his waist. "I did as you suggested, Tadrin," she told him. "I hushed the nightmares, and his mind quieted." "Will he wake then?" Tadrin asked. "I think he will, yes. Though there is something. I may have found memories within his nightmares. It is hard to tell the difference. His mind is terribly twisted. If I may, Captain?" She looked at the man with ginger hair, a friendly white face and bright blue eyes, who at once smiled at her. "He should be watched when he wakes. He will be confused, and he could be dangerous." "I have that covered," the man assured her. He tilted his head toward the entrance, where seated comfortably on a soft green chair, and with his face widened in a gaping yawn, was the one who'd brought the youth back into daylight. "I wondered why you were here," Tadrin said, sourly. "You were asleep when we walked in, so I couldn't ask." "Was I really?" Tawari replied, clearly fighting the urge to yawn again. "I would never. As you said, I'm on guard, you do." "There is nothing to guard here," Dr. Bash complained. "When and if he regains consciousness, he'll be lucky if he can lift his head from the pillows. I told him days ago to make himself useful somewhere else." "Thank you, Doctor," intervened the captain. "Really, no, but thank you." He smiled. "If there's one thing this war has taught me, it's to never, ever underestimate the strength of an Alassian, no matter how helpless he or she looks. And I mean no offense to the lot of you." He beamed at the Alassians. "So Alfred let me worry about my men's usefulness." The doctor snorted. "Tawari is here on my orders, and he will remain here until I say otherwise, especially when I'm told that we can expect this one to be dangerous." A trapped animal is dangerous, said the Selin Arohin, and even more so when afraid. There is much fear in this young one. It was terror that held him suspended between sleep and wakefulness, nightmares of the worst kind, those born from memories. I glimpsed some, though I couldn't tell truth from nightmare. It all seemed nightmare. Doctor, why do you try to wake him? Dr. Bash had pinched the sleeping Alassian, and with a groan the youth had moved his hand an inch. The doctor pinched him again, and again the youth shrunk from the touch. I'm not waking him. I'm checking if he's responsive. We've all seen that he is, said the Selin. Or have you missed it? Please do not pinch him again. Enough, enough, said the captain. I'm sure the doctor knows his medicine. Precisely. And if you are done with what you came here to do, you should leave. Let my patient rest. Yes, agreed Tadrin. With a hand at the small of Arohin's back, he led her outside the room. Captain Liu Logain went after them. Dr. Bash busied himself at the bedside for a time. Then he too left. Tawari remained seated in the green chair. Once alone, he retrieved a thick book from beside him on the floor and began to read. Now and then he raised his gaze from the pages to see that the youth still slept. At times he stood and paced about the room with his hands in his pockets. He went to look outside the small square window at the land, a dry desert of hard earth and distant mountains. Groups of men and women dressed in grey and brown camouflage went about on foot or in trucks. Tawari removed his military hat and looked at it, pensively, stroking the short visor with his thumb. Then he sighed. Putting the hat back on, he returned to his book.